In today's episode, Predecessor? Part 1, The Hiring. Predecessor? Part 2, The Introduction. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Predecessor? Part 1, The Hiring. This story will take you along with me through one of my craziest adventures in this field. Usually I wouldn't include the process of getting the job into a story, but here it is necessary. As I was working for my previous employer, I had moved out of the city and into one of the most beautiful countrysides in this country, which caused me to drive 2.5 hours per day to get to work and back. Since it was right when the pandemic started, I thought this was the right timing to do the move as I could just work from home. Wrong. Boss wanted me to drive to work nonetheless. I found that weird as I was the only employee raking in any profit for the small company. The rest was an intern, one in finance, and that's it. So the support I provided to all our customers was our biggest income. So I started looking for a job elsewhere because of this and other reasons. I changed my status in one of those websites, where you can get recruited, to looking for an opportunity. After a day my inbox was getting swarmed and I started to sort through the vacancies. One job caught my eye in particular. IT company of a multi-billion holding, production sites all over the world, looking for a sysadmin in this beautiful but remote countryside. So I declared my curiosity, and we got to talk. During the first phone call, I talked to the head of the IT department. He told me the production sites in my area were getting bigger and bigger, and could no longer be supported remotely from HQ, which is a several hours drive away. He explained how this holding is structured, what we produce, and how those things are later on processed/used by our customers, as we are also producing some kind of fabric among many other things. He mentioned that every new worker can choose the brand of their company's cell phone and laptop. The rest was normal chit-chat, getting a feeling of one another, and we end the call agreeing to talk to each other again, but that time with one more person in the call. During the second call, the other person in the call was someone who set up all the infrastructure decades ago, and is still providing external support to the holding. This call was divided into two parts. First part was him explaining the whole structure to me, and how all of it is connected, redundancies, backups, company guidelines for hardware/software and much more. The second part was a test of my knowledge and procedures as I was being given potential scenarios, and what I think the causes of those would be, and how I'd go about solving the issues. Both parts took over an hour. As exhausting as this was, they seemed pleased and wanted to see me in person. During that meeting there were 3 people present. The CEO of the company, not of the holding, where I would have my office at. The head of IT that I talked to during those 2 phone calls. The CIO of the holding, and thus the boss of the head of IT. Again, the conversation went great. We started talking about certain off-topic subjects, and it turned out the CIO is a big anime nerd like I am, met my wife at an anime forum, and his wife is Japanese. After talking about $, and seemingly found a number we both agreed upon, we take a tour through the factory. For someone like me who had only worked at small businesses before, this was huge. Really huge. The main site is 35,000 square meters, or about 377,000 square feet, and I was told that the other 3 sites in that vicinity that I would potentially also be in charge of would raise that to about 130,000 square meters, or about 1.4 million square feet. Those other 3 sites are about half an hour drive away from the main site. We returned to the conference room and had some parting words as both sides declared ongoing interest. They mentioned they would meet the only other person still in the race in 2 days, and then make their decision. 2 days later I get the call that they want me. I quit my job and signed the new contract. I had some weeks off in between my last day at the previous job and the start of the new one, so I could relax a bit, though I was clearly nervous. I used the time to decide which phone and laptop I want and sent that to my boss, but he somewhat evaded that topic, saying we can discuss that on my first day. Made me slightly suspicious. So it was time, my first day at that new job, filled up with coffee and anxiety. I appeared at the gates and am welcomed by my boss, and we went to the company's HR department. Note, this is not my HR, as this HR only handles issues of their workers. As someone employed by the IT company that provides support to all other companies inside the holding, my HR is actually at HQ. The head of HR gave me a cell phone, some papers I should sign that I received certain items and points at laptop case, saying that those belonged to my predecessor. My what? What? Before I could recover from this shock, she had to take an important phone call. I looked over to my boss, who wouldn't make any eye contact, knowing how I must feel, and he seemed extremely embarrassed about this situation. As I was sitting there, head of HR still on the phone, I was contemplating what I should do. Just leave without a comment? Understandable, yes. Reasonable, no, as I still had to pay my bills. Voice my anger/disappointment? Again, understandable, but not reasonable, as what good would that have done? As my thoughts were getting more and more structured after the initial shock, I decided to say nothing. I didn't know why they lied to me, but nothing I could have done seemed like it would have improved the already embarrassing and tense atmosphere. I decided to look for a different job while giving them a chance to redeem themselves with a good explanation, which I would be slowly but surely be pushing for. Spoiler alert, I didn't need to wait long. I will include the link to part 2 once I get the time to write it. Sadly, with the recent cyber attacks towards our holding and the whole Log4j issue, I'm pretty much drowning in work. Part 2 will include why I was lied to and other iconic moments of him. Part 2, the introduction. Predecessor? Part 2, the introduction. Part 1, the hiring. So after what took place in Part 1, we actually had a full day's worth of work ahead of us. It turned out that my predecessor was fired about 2 days before my first day. Usually that person would still be around to teach the new one, because our contracts in the holding say that you are still employed for the rest of the current month plus 3 more months. So even if you subtract his potentially remaining vacation days and overtime, he should still be around, unless the employer basically says that you don't need to show up while still paying you, which was the case here. Normally your first day pretty much ends after some introductions, getting your equipment, a tour through all the halls, and you get shown where your office/cubicle is going to be. Not quite the case here. $Boss and $External, the one from phone call number 2 in Part 1, were present. We were sitting in a conference room and they showed me a lot of information, pictures regarding the network, while I was setting up my equipment, as apparently my predecessor just factory resetted the cell phone and laptop. Upon finishing the installation of the cell phone, it starts ringing. I saw that it was a cell phone number and just handed over the phone to Boss, as I felt like something was off here. Boss picked it up and talked for a bit. Boss, no. Boss listening. Boss, that's on you. Boss listening. Boss, there is nothing I can do. Boss hangs up. Me, who was it? Boss, your predecessor begging for something. Awkward silence, more of that even moresome sounds from Windows. Me, my laptop seems to be ready now. What's the Wi-Fi password? Me, in my head, good save, dude. Good save. We proceeded to finish up setting up the laptop and joining the domain. After going through every VM at my sites, more administrative preparations, and of course more pictures to look at, we set out to go through the halls, so I can introduce myself. What followed was going through a maze of halls in 4 different buildings at the main site, entering each office and repeating the same introduction over and over again. After about the 3rd stop, it became really hard to keep a genuine smile on my face, while feeling like a broken record player stuck on the same loop for at least another 50 stops. The reaction I received varied. Some seemed enthusiastic to see a new face. Some were surprised and asked what happened with predecessor, very awkward. Others just didn't seem like they cared, and the last group seemed mad, because they liked $Predecessor. I mean, they said it out loud like, oh no, I actually liked $Predecessor. The first day ended with us visiting the other 3 sites and repeating the introduction loop. On day 2 we looked for all the places in the production halls where the switches are located, and I got introduced how the ticket system works and where to find some documentation about my local network and global network. That's it. At the end of day 2 both left, and from there on I was on my own. So I had to learn how things work on the fly, as what we went through was nowhere near enough with a network of this size, and with hardware/software I haven't used before, which I was supposed to set up at one of the other sites the week after. So on day 3 I sat down in my office and tried to come up with a plan. The server room and all, I don't know how to call those, rooms with no servers in them but patch panels and switches, were a mess. Cable management from hell. The ground is covered in boxes filled with random stuff that you can barely set foot into the rooms. I still didn't really know where to look if someone came to me with a problem that didn't just require a less than 1-minute fix. After some thinking I decided I'd try to socialize with the others on site as fast as possible and find out, or at least get a feel, what transpired in the past with Predecessor. Because this would determine whether I would like to stay with the company or not. While socializing, asking them if they have any issues/wishes I can help with. Colleagues who were older than me generally were pretty tight-lipped, but those around my age and younger were eager to share some information about Predecessor. My reaction to those stories varied from WTF to laughing maniacally. Since those stories were verified by multiple other colleagues, I was ruling out that some people could have been just salty. Number 1, Special Coffee. Colleague 1, hey, Predecessor, we need your help at Random Production Machine. Predecessor, I will be there after I finish my coffee. Colleague 1, so in like 5 minutes? Predecessor, no. This is my special coffee, with beans chosen by me, grinded by hand and brewed with a unique technique. Colleague 1, and that means you will be here when? Predecessor, no less than 45 minutes. Number 2, none of my beeswax. Colleague 2, I cannot access random software. Predecessor, call HQ. I'm not responsible for random software, note, he actually was. Colleague 3, my phone is offline. Predecessor, call HQ. I'm busy. Colleague 3, but my phone is. Predecessor, use your colleague's phone. Can't you think of that yourself? I'm busy anyway. Number 3, insert Frank Sinatra's voice, and I did it, my way away. Conference call with all IT personnel. Boss, stating some internal guidelines about how to set something up, so that's how it is supposed to be done. Predecessor, nah, that's stupid. I will do it my way. Boss, what? We need to have our system all follow those guidelines. We agreed upon those standards. Predecessor, I didn't agree. Boss, you cannot just do. Predecessor leaves the call and proceeds to do it his way. Number 4, rank means nothing if your ego is big enough. Some colleagues told me that he would repeatedly have arguments with CIO, disagreeing and defying his orders. And the reason he would do it is because he supposedly knew better than the rest. From what I can tell today, his knowledge was somewhat higher than an average intern. Problems that I've solved since, that he deemed impossible to solve, and told the colleagues to live with it, were so easy to solve. And he supposedly tried for hours on some of them. I hadn't encountered all of those problems in the past, but after 20 seconds of Googling I found the answer to why in one case a person couldn't print mails from Outlook. I mean, it is the first hit when you Google can't print email from Outlook. I still cannot wrap my head around to why he had his job for 3 years, and what he thought the consequences would be just flat out defying one of the top people in the whole multi-billion holding. Number 5, mirror mirror on the wall. For whatever reasons, Predecessor left a letter from the police in his office. It was a speeding ticket, doing 160 plus km/h, 100 mph, where 120 km per hour, 75 mph, were allowed. So I finally saw a picture of him. Needless to say, bad quality, but I thought I could use that to start off a conversation with a colleague. $Me, hey, $college #4, is that Predecessor or the guy who was here before him? $colleague #4, yeah, that's him with his weird hairdo. $Me, what do you mean? He looks bald on the picture. $colleague #4, no. His sides were shaved, from the top of his head down to his eyebrows were shaved, but from the top of his head downwards he grew his hair, down to his hips. Me, I can imagine how that would look rather weird. Anyhow, what was he like? $colleague #4, an arrogant and lazy bastard. Me, how? $colleague #4, he never took care of a problem. Always referred to the ticket systems which he would never look at. All problems were never his responsibility, and he was of course always busy. Me, so if he never did anything, what did he actually do during a day? I mean, the man must have done something. Anything. $colleague #4, I dunno, maybe he was testing different hair products on the side, as that seemed like the only thing he was taking care of. Number 6, no caption, just my favorite one. Predecessor asks $external what to do in order to get fourth production site connected with the data center. So Predecessor has all the hardware needed, firewalls and switches, and this dates back to the point where fourth production site was just acquired and had to be set up. Besides a server cabinet, the server room was empty in regards to furniture. Predecessor, so how do I need to configure the firewalls? External gives long explanation. External, any questions? Predecessor, no. A few days later, Predecessor calls $external for help. Predecessor, nothing is working. $external, did you do what I said a few days ago? Predecessor, as I said, nothing is working. External, that doesn't answer the question. Predecessor, look, are you going to fix the problem or not? We pay you a lot of money every month. External, give me your TeamViewer ID then. He connects to Predecessor's laptop and starts checking the settings of the routers, firewalls and switches. External, well, of course nothing is working. You haven't done anything that I told you to do. If you configure it like I said, it will work. Radio silence. No words spoken. Cursor is not moving. Several minutes actually pass. External, do I need to repeat what I said days ago, or when are you going to start doing the changes needed? Predecessor, that was your stupid idea, so you do the changes. Why should I do what you said? You get paid a lot, now do something for that money. And I won't do anything in here until I get a table and a chair in here. Those are unacceptable working conditions in here. External gave up and implemented those changes. Since then I've been to that server room. Still no table or chairs. Between us, this has become one of the running gags whenever I have to go to that server room. No table and or no chair equals no work. The darn room next to it has both, and you have a 5M cable, then you can even sit at a table and do the work if you keep the door open. There are several stories more, but I cannot remember all of them completely. This should be enough though to get the message across why Predecessor had to go. To this day I get several calls from places where he registered his company's cell phone. I got text messages when his COVID shot appointments were coming up, when he booked hotels, other doctor appointment reminders, etc. He clearly didn't use it as he was supposed to. So they needed to get rid of him, and knew he wouldn't take it kindly, nor would he teach me during our time together. So why lie about it? 2 reasons. One is that would weaken their position during discussions. The other one is that if I happened to know someone in that company, I could tell them, and they could tell so on, until it might have reached Predecessor. But why not openly say so during the first days? I mentioned it in the comments of part 1. Boss didn't know how to say it. He comes across as very shy and unconfrontational. He probably wouldn't have known how to react if I had become somewhat aggressive with my attitude upon hearing his explanation. All in all, they got a pass from me, and I'm still there. The reason why I thought about writing about Predecessor was my most recent find, the server room that I finally managed to clean up a bit. Hidden under several layers of other boxes, I find the treasure. A box full with about 100 to 200 Commodore 64 discs. You know, the big medium ones, not the 3.5-foot, edit, got corrected in the comments section. Didn't know 8 discs existed. According to the texts on them, they date back to the year I was born in the early 80s. Coincidentally, I actually still possess a Commodore 64, and as tempted as I was to take a peek, I settled with calling my IT colleagues in HQ with my camera on and presenting them the gem. What if you could put all those disks in a big RAID? Would you get a whooping 2 megabytes of space? We will never know. This concludes the saga about Predecessor. Other stories I have in mind have to wait because of legal reasons, for probably another year. I hope you guys enjoyed and Happy New Year.